Good morning, Bill.
Good morning, Bill. How are you?
Man, I am well. It is cold outside. I did my walk anyway, right?
Yeah.
Cold and wet. Was out there with my rain shell on and a different hat so that way I didn't mess up this one. And walked a mile and a half in the rain and the cold and then came home and did my journaling and I feel better having done
Awesome. Glad to hear. I slept.
it. Hey man, no harm, no foul on that. I kind of did that yesterday. So
Yeah, it's hard on days like this not to want to go me.
really hard.
Mm-hmm.
But that being, sorry, go ahead.
So just especially when it's just switched to this weather.
Yeah, it takes us Texans a little bit longer to get used to it because we don't have to deal with just a terrible amount of this. But
yeah,
man, there is nothing over like 75 in like the 10-day forecast, which is really exciting.
Yeah.
How was yesterday?
It was good. It was good. I got a lot done. Had some good meetings. Having trouble finding podcast guests that meet the criteria that actually want to come on the air. I've never had this issue before. So you're muted now. I think you have to mute on your mic.
So tell me about that. Like what? How many people have you asked? First of all.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Ann, how are you?
Good morning, Ann.
So I've gone through of this particular type of ask. I've gone through about 15 or so that I've actually got a hold of and actually had the conversation with, and only 2 of them have been willing to go on, and it seems to be a lot of just kind of like people who don't go on video. They're like, I'm not really interested in going on video. I don't go on video. I'm not good on video, like that sort of thing. Or that's a podcast. I'm like intimidation or fear how they're going to look or feel on camera.
Do you think that maybe the podcast funnel is losing some of the greatness as far as it being like a lead gen prospecting tool?
I don't know. I don't think so, because people that do come on seem to really enjoy it, and I think maybe I just hit a patch of people that weren't really interested right now. I tend to put other factors on than the podcast itself, because I still think anytime you're willing to let other people talk about their business, whether it's a news article or a magazine or a podcast, everybody likes talking about their stuff. So
everybody does, for sure. So do you need to change the ask? Do you need to change the target? Do you need to make it less frictionful?
Maybe. There's not much friction to it right now, though. That's the interesting part, is because it's really just, hey, we're not, looking for people to be on the podcast to run cost-driven organizations, that have a team. You got a team that you run, and you got a cost-driven org, and we'd love just to hear about how you use your business for social good, for change. Tell us about your challenges. Tell us about the cool things you do. I mean, that's as simple as it gets, right? And then some of the questions I actually get is, is it like live on air? No, it's not. We record beforehand, so we can edit out anything you don't like. If you want the questions beforehand, we're happy to send those over. It's just you and me chat for 20, 30 minutes, and that's it. So that's what I mean. It doesn't feel like an intimidating ask unless you just don't like the idea of being on air.
Yeah. With do you think you're setting a good expectation about like, hey, you don't have to be like a PR person to come on the show? Would like to just have like a casual, candid conversation? Do you think that kind of setting some of those kind of modifiers in there to kind of like set the expectation that it's not going to be like highly produced and there's not going to be any pressure on them?
No, I didn't get that far. It's normally like, no, I'm good.
Okay.
It's normally
interesting.
2 questions in and it's done. I'm like, no, I think I'm good. I even had somebody I asked who I thought would be a yes for sure, because I know that they've been on camera before, and not a lot, but they've done it. And anyway, it was maybe later. Now it's not a good time. You know?
Okay. I mean, it is the fourth quarter. We are in the middle of a global pandemic. A lot of people are putting a lot of decisions after the election, which doesn't really make a ton of sense to me.
Right.
But then again, there's probably some uniqueness to those areas where it makes sense to do so, I guess. I mean, I feel like a lot of people are just kind of like hovering their finger over the pause button, right? So that way they can kind of selectively pause and unpause and stuff like that. So you might just need to up your asks, honestly.
Yeah, that's true. And that's a good point. I think I had that feeling too, that it's a fourth quarter thing more than anything else. Everyone's just kind of, panic's right where it's not like it's panic. It's just like hesitation on a lot of things. Just I don't know, maybe. Hey, Levi. Shark Lady. Yeah, so here's the hard part, right? Is I'm trying to be restrictive on the podcast guests this time around, because I've had podcasts where I just interview interesting people, and she would be awesome for that. And that has always been super easy to fill those type of podcasts, because there's always interesting people who come on the air. I'm looking for people who are actually running a business with a team to take a few minutes out and just talk to me about their business and things like that. And that seems to be, to me, I don't know about you, John, and Levi, and anybody else who watches the podcast, there is kind of this podcast professional, if you will, who goes podcast to podcast and does interviews. And then those of us that have a podcast are totally fine being on other people's podcasts when they ask us. Yeah. So there's almost like this podcast circle, if you will. I don't want to go the whole way through the there, but it's like that tends to be the more, unless you've got this really like Joe Rogan, you got like this large podcast where you can go land whatever guest you want. Yeah. That tends to be what I'm seeing, and maybe I'm just, maybe that's not 100% truth, but I definitely know that there's a kind of a trend that way among most podcast guests you see. But of course, then it depends on the podcast too. So yeah. I'd have no fear or hesitation about continuing to do this, because I know once I get the right ask in the right circles, I won't have any problem getting people. I know what I'm not doing, and this kind of actually drives back to sales conversations, is I have not been spending enough time in arenas and groups and live events when they're available and things like that in my target market space. I do what a lot of other people do, which is go hang out in big, massive general ones, or ones for my profession, because I feel comfortable there, instead of going and hanging out and being a little uncomfortable in some place I don't know anybody, and I just really don't know what they're going to talk about at the events, because it's not like my group per se. And so I've been forcing myself to look for more of that stuff, and just haven't pulled the trigger on a lot of them, just because honestly, they're harder to find. It's real easy to go find someplace just to go hang out this weekend on a networking event on a Friday night on the Zoom. Like, there's 1,000 of those right now that I could go pick to be on, but there's far less likely to be my target market and my client and things like that hanging around on those podcasts or those networking events.
You are the brand new Ed Jones guy joining the network, who thinks that you're just going to kill it. You're just going to mop up the floor with all these introductions and referrals. And everyone inside that room is like, you know what? I've seen something like you before, right? We've had another Ed Jones guy in here. We've had, that's, I think you might be running into a little bit of that, right? And to that point, I think that Levi makes kind of a good point, right? When I think there is something to be said for niching, and I've kind of a cool story about that here in a second, but man, I feel like maybe some of the accessibility of podcasts is too much for some people, right? Like, because I remember the first time I was asked to be on a podcast, I believe it was yours, right? Productive Point of View, right? Way back in the day. And I was jacked. Like, I was super ramped up about it. And then I was on one last week, and I'd completely even forgotten that it was going to even be a thing. I was like, hey, I'm not even sure how this meeting got on our calendar. Can you let me know what we're here to talk about? And the guy was like, I thought you wanted to be a guest on my show. And I'm like, I'm absolutely ready to be a guest on your show. Let's go and do this thing.
Yeah.
But with the fact that everybody has a podcast, I think
Yeah.
that the fact that you're kind of an unknown quantity, I think that more and more people are hopping on this thing of like, well, if I do it around a show, it's going to make people want to talk to me, and I'll build lots of trust, and then I can get a sell, right? Like I think that more and more business owners are kind of seeing this for like what it is, which doesn't necessarily mean that it doesn't work. You just have to take steps to make sure that it's viewed as authentic in their eyes, right?
Right. Yeah, and that's kind of the point, like, of the whole networking part is my goal is not to go join 1,000 networking groups and then just do a 10,000 asks. My goal is to find a few networking groups of those types of people to actually invest in. And then as I get to know them, ask them, that's because then it is genuine and I am there to help. And then also I have a podcast.
I mean, so it's weird because I think you just kind of get used to it, right? Like I asked Noah the other day, I sent him an email and I was like, hey, I've got this show, would like you to be on it. Not because you're like head sumo, but just because you're super productive and you get a lot of stuff done. Mm-hmm. And his email was just one line, not going on any other shows right now, amigo, is exactly what it said. And I was kind of like, okay, it's totally fine. I could choose to be like irritated about it, but like he's a busy guy and his logic makes sense. He has his own show, he might not be on anybody else, so that's totally okay. I mean, part of it, you have a pretty small sample size at only 15, I would say. So it is the fourth quarter, so like I think that all these are contributing factors. So like I think instead of just like assuming that everyone is going to be like 100% yes, maybe we need to be like, we might need to make 3 asks to get 1 yes, which is still like the best ratio any salesperson on the planet would honestly be asking for.
Yeah, totally. And that's where I'm at. I'm like I said, I'm not intimidated or not even really disappointed. It was more just, man, this worked so well. It's kind of like LinkedIn organic reach a year or 2 ago. Like you can get on there, you can post something, and then I'd have 1,000 people commenting on my stuff, and you can't do that. You just can't do that anymore. Times have changed and shifted, so you just adapt. So.
Well, and that's, I mean, it's like I see a lot of people who are like, man, you should be on TikTok. You should be on TikTok. If you create an account on TikTok, like you don't even have to be that good, and you can get viral, right, and stuff like this. And I'm like, it's only a matter of time until that platform is blown up as big as the other ones, right? Mm-hmm. Like, in God, this might be just like ego, but like I don't want to get an audience or following or people following me because like I'm just the best shiny turd on the platform. Not saying that everybody who's on TikTok is a turd, but if I'm only getting engagement because like I'm the only person talking about this stuff, like that to me is not the same thing as I'm on a crowded platform and the content that I'm talking about actually has value to the people like in that thing, and I earn that spot, right? Mm-hmm. Which might be 70% me disliking to make things really freaking hard on myself, but I don't want to take the easy way out on the easy platform, which might just be stupidity.
I think it's 50-50. I mean, I think you do about things. You are like, this is too easy. I can't do it this way. No, but I have proof. I don't care. It's too easy.
Yeah.
But I do also agree though. Like, I mean, I think that's why people that are good at pivoting quickly can do well when situations like that. Because if there's a year to 2 years worth of a social media kind of virality that everybody has once it hits a certain point, people kill that way and create huge audiences, and it's just a tool and a tactic, right? So, but it goes away.
Yeah. So quick story. This guy that I'm coaching, I've been coaching him for a while, and he works in commercial insurance, and he's finally kind of right inside commercial insurance. There's lots of ways to like specialize, right? And this guy has been a little bit over here trying to figure this out, a little bit over here trying to figure this out, right? And has been a little bit hesitant to really kind of plant his flag and say, I'm doing this stuff and I'm going to say no to other stuff, right? And obviously you and I know how important that is, right? And the Obviously Awesome book talks about it a lot as well, but he has finally kind of centered on like the area that he wants to like work in, and dude is just like on fire, right? Like when you really kind of know your niche and you know that you're really, really good and unique and you've got USPs, unique service positions or statements and things, your prospecting is just so much easier, right? Because it's no longer like, please talk to me, we can figure this thing out. It's, I do this thing really good over here. You want to talk about this? No. Okay. Can I tell you what some of the other people are getting from this? Okay. How about now? If they still say no, it's really easy to say no because you've kind of put forth your full effort, right? In the beginning, before you really kind of find your niche and you get your legs under you and everything else like this, it's just kind of like, well, but we can figure this out, right? Like don't, you know what I'm saying? So it kind of changes the intent of the sales conversations from let's figure something out together to let me run this thing and do it really well for you, or let me move on to the next one. And I think that that's really fascinating and unique because we talk about this all the time. We talk about niching and why it's important and saying no to bad stuff that takes you off the path and everything else. But part of it is just like, you got to get to that point. You have to do enough reps to like really understand like what you're really good at. So that way it's easier for you to say, you know what? No, I can do this, but I'm not going to do that. It was so awesome on the call yesterday because he was just talking about like no fear in his prospecting, right? Like just super eager to like pick up the phone and talk to these people because he knows he can bring them value and help them and you know, do things for them that other people can't. That's huge. That's huge for your confidence, right? It's also huge for your like mental toughness whenever someone's like, well, I don't see any value in that. Cool. These other 15 people do. So awesome.
Yeah, that's true. Hi, Gabriel. How are you?
Good morning, Gabriel. The weather is a little rough. Traffic from here to like the end of the driveway was just stop and go this morning. It was super crazy.
I knew I was going to see what the reference was. I knew it was coming. Driveway, the sidewalk.
I mean, yeah. Jake drove all night long to get to this, you know, scholastic abode he's in right now.
That's right. I actually am still dreaming. This is my dream bookcase. Jake dreams of unexplored niches. Oh man, that was such a nerdy joke. I love it.
Yeah,
it so good.
It would never work anywhere else. It barely worked here.
It's the only audience it would work on, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and to answer your question, yes, Sherry, actually, I posted hers this past week. She was one that I interviewed. It was a great one too, by the way.
So what do you have today?
So today I'm actually meeting with Brandon. He connected us.
Brandon King. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, he mentioned yesterday that you guys were going to meet today. I'm excited for you to meet him. He's a cool guy.
Yeah. So I'm actually going to do an IRL in real life meetup with someone. So
IRL.
Yep. I've got that, and then I've got a coaching client at 11, and then I've got work, just stuff to do for clients. Stuff to deliver after that, after lunch. So
cool.
Locked in. What about you?
I've got my kind of daily sprint with Levi, which I think is helping. It's been kind of interesting to see how much the daily focus, right, and the daily kind of reinforcement is helping. This might be something I'd play with for everybody else, but I'm not really sure what that looks like yet. So we have that. I've got the real estate mastermind group that we're meeting with, and then I have sales lab at 2. And then I got connected with a person who works with a bunch of companies. I'm not sure in what capacity, but does so well that she does it all from a boat. So her and her family are like living in a boat off the east coast of the United States. And I got connected to her to talk about business, but really I just want to talk about how do you do that? You know, how do you just live off a boat? You know, I think that could be really interesting.
Of course, I don't know. What comes to mind when you say she's on the boat, but in Sandberg. But
and my flippy flop is
right. That's right. That's interesting. I guess what's funny too is right now it doesn't really matter where you work, so you could work from a boat, but like during past times, that would be really interesting.
Well, it's funny because, you know, we had Croft on Friday, who's from DFW, now lives in Colorado. A friend of mine, John Lopez, was in town, who I used to work with here in DFW, and now he lives in Colorado. And it's kind of like all the things that really make it interesting to like live here, which is like friends and like the networking scene and everything else like this, is kind of
It's dried up a little bit.
Right. I can get the same amount of, stuff from this. So why live in, the flat, boring Texas? Right. I mean, I don't know. It's kind of an interesting idea. We've been kind of like talking about it, but not like super seriously.
Yeah. It's all about what the atmosphere you're looking for, right? Like what you want your life to be like. Because like certain people could care less about the mountains, like they just like, sure, they're great to look at on my screensaver. But, like Jason Croft wants to touch them every day, it's one of those things.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting times. I was reading yesterday, which I think this already kind of exists, but they were maybe just writing it because it was interesting to write about. But like I have these second cities, which I always thought were called suburbs. These second cities, you have the metropolis, and then you have these cities about 25 miles away. I think that's
so do you consider like Dallas-Fort Worth a second city? Do you consider it a suburb? Because it's not a top tier city for sure.
Are metropolis cities. We have one of those few twin city things, like Minneapolis, Minnesota, Dallas-Fort Worth, because you're over 1 million for both. So I mean, those are big cities.
Yeah.
But no, I consider all those other cities around suburbs, those two cities, right?
So the way that I think about it, and this is probably weird, but like I think about like Seattle and LA and New York and Chicago and maybe Miami as like top tier cities. And then there's like a bunch of other cities like Dallas-Fort Worth and Boise, Houston, Denver, that are big cities in and of themselves, but are never going to like reach that same tier as like LA or New York.
Yeah. No, I'm thinking more contextual than that. Like just in my area, because if I lived in Ohio, Cleveland would be the big city, and the stuff outside of Cleveland would be the suburbs, like the 5-10 mile out cities are kind of the hanger-ons, right? Because the point of this article was that there's this. And this is in those cities like you're talking about, Seattle, New York, LA. Everybody lives and works down there, right? Because all the stuff's down there, all the tech, everything, all the manufacturing. And then in the past, you couldn't go live out 30, 40 miles from LA or Seattle because traffic was too bad. And the commute would kill you. And now with only having to come in maybe once a week or not at all, people are moving out there because it's more affordable and there's more land or views or whatever. And they go in to work once a week. And then there's even saying, it's interesting that there might be, in some types of companies where you come in to town for a whole week of like brainstorming and intense planning and then and then for 3 weeks out of the month you're back out working from home. So that's interesting. Like I was telling Mindy, we were sitting at a football game this weekend, and I was telling her I think there's just this probably, let's say 40% of people have done a whole lot more remote work right now. I don't know what the stats say right now. I haven't looked recently, but of the 40%, I think 80% of them are going back to a hybrid model. It's not going to be like 5 days a week. Because if you're already working 100% remote, there's going to be some hybrid when it goes back.
I think if you're not looking at like your office space cost in like a new way in the middle of all this, I think you're not paying any attention to what is going on, And I know a lot of companies in the tech scene who will let other people like developers and stuff like this like work from home, but the sales team has to come in, which is always stupid in my opinion, right? Like in the common like line that I hear from people is, well, we need the salespeople here because we have to check to make sure that they're doing their activities. Their activities have end results, right? So you look at the end results, you plan activities based upon these things, and then you hold people accountable to the activities and not the results. But that means you actually have to manage your salespeople and not just like give them the longest leash ever and be like, well, you have an annual quota, let's hope you hit it. What have you done for me? Like the way that most companies talk and coach like salespeople is so filled with double talk and mixed signals. Like you can't even find your way out of it. Like literally 2 weeks ago when we were talking about this deal, this guy on the phone was, oh, this thing sells itself, but don't try to force it if you don't think you can save them $100 per month. And I'm like, this thing sells itself, right? Like, I know that in your opinion, that's exactly how this works because you built it. So you've got like puppy dog love, glasses on it, but other people are going to have concerns about this, right? And that's going to keep us from doing it. And in those times, it doesn't matter if you think that this is the greatest thing since, sliced bread or HubSpot or whatever it is. It only matters what is going on in the mind of the prospect at the time you're talking to them, right? So you can think it's great. Every person who's created anything thinks it's the best thing since sliced bread, but nobody has 100% of the market. So
Sure.
maybe let's set those expectations better appropriately. Hey, look, if they are in our target market and they're above a certain thing that makes them really uniquely qualified for this thing, then it makes complete sense. And we should be saying no to everybody else. Like, that kind of management style is what actually allows sales teams to do very, very well. Not just this, well, better luck next time. What have you done for me lately? In these things that like we sometimes do, right? And so, some of it is like inadvertent, but like when you're leading other people, you got to be aware of how you communicate and the messages you're sending, right? On both sides of it.
Yeah. And I think there's a great parallel to, and I've said this for a while now, it is every one of us are big kids. Like, we all have a kid inside of us. Like, we're really just that kid who's grown some adult habits, hopefully. But the managing people, I feel like managing them well is a lot like raising a kid well. Is you have lots of small touch points where you encourage them and ask them how their day's going and have real conversation with them and care about the outcomes and how they feel about things. And then there isn't like this, snapback of like, oh, you did that wrong, smack. And you do that again, you're fired, or, oh, your kid does something wrong. You do that again, you're grounded, or like, it's such a close parallel to me of it's just good human relationship. So if that's how you treat one group of people, why wouldn't you treat the other group of people that way as well?
Man, it's honestly baffling, but if you're
the money, because they're directly tied to the money.
Well, I think when you have a long selling cycle and you don't really have a sales culture that's based upon like coaching and improvement and activity and process, then you can't have anything to look towards, right? So then like you're the sales manager and you've probably been promoted because you were the best guy in the field of like getting it done. And now it's no longer about you getting it done. It's about how well can you get other people to get it done. Yep. And so then the only thing you know how to do is just get out of the way and let me help you. Right. Oh, let me handle this. Right. And like, you see this stuff all the time, right? Like I know some pretty big agencies to where the owner is cherry picking the best leads, right? And is like super happy about his close rate and is sending a bunch of like shit leads down to like everybody else. And then he honestly cannot figure out why his close rate is so much better than the other people. I'm like, are you serious? On the qualification form, it says, how much can you afford to spend on your business? And there's kind of two main drop downs, right? 0 to 5,000 and 5 to 10,000. When you're taking all the ones that come across at $5,000 to $10,000 per month, you don't think you're playing with a better deck of cards than the other people are?
Right. Exactly.
It's crazy.
Exactly.
Oh, Gabriel, hold on. We got to put this one up real quick, and then I need to go here pretty soon.
Oh no.
Yeah,
I do not.
Welcome, sir. Welcome, sir. I mean, you're gonna put that out there. It's like you wanted it to be featured.
That's good.
I had a guy in AIT, and he would do this as a joke, right? Because you're in the Army, it's close quarters anyway. You go walking into the head, and like there's just like a grown man sitting there with like his entire Army uniform down around his ankles for a laugh. It was.
That's a college trick too. I remember guys in college doing that just to get a laugh.
Absolutely. Okay, cool. So let's wrap this here because I got to go meet Levi and you got to go meet Brandon, and we'll pick it up tomorrow, Bill.
Sounds good, man. Have a good day.
Thanks, man. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Levi and Gabriel and Ann. Tell some friends. Bring some other people. Let's make it a party.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. See you guys tomorrow.